When I was younger, there was something my family and I did a few times that I really enjoyed. I think even one year we did it for my sister's birthday. We took her and a few of her friends and we toured the Jelly Belly factory. And it's a great time. You do a tour and then they walk you through the gift shop where you're forced to look at items that are probably $20 too expensive, but you buy them anyways because you want to support that big bean. They have that mascot, the big red bean. And you're like, that guy probably runs on money, right? So I want to keep him alive. I'll pay whatever you'll want me to. And then you buy a thing that sits in your closet for the next few decades because you can't put that stuff out. It's aesthetically a nightmare. Jelly Belly stuff, Jelly Belly merch. When are you going to wear or display that and not just look like a fool, huh? Like you just walked right out of Candyland. But that's what it is. It's Candyland. And that's why I loved it so much. They even end you at the place with all the flavors listed, and they're like, do you want to sample any of them? Any one of them? I'm like, oh, any one. I get my pick, right? And they're like, yep, but only one. Don't eat more, you greedy little pig, you. I'm like, oh my. Was this part of the tour? That part? Because I don't, if I paid for that, can I have my money back? I didn't really like that. But I love the whole experience of touring the Jelly Belly factory. I believe it's in Yolo County, right? Fairfield, is that in Yolo County? And by the way, it's YOLO. In the 2010s, what weight, right? What motion that word had. YOLO. Now no one says it. But back then, everyone was saying it. And it's really like the modern day carpe diem, right? Because it was just like a nice way to remind everyone that, hey, you're going to die one day. We all do. So make sure you live it up today as if it's your last day. Seize the day, in fact. It's very philosophical. But a lot came out of that, right? Lonely Island even made a song, I think with Kendrick Lamar. And it was a good song. It is a good song. It still exists. It's like YOLO, say no, no. Isolate yourself and then stay solo. We say something, something, right? Great song. I quite enjoyed it. And so I bet YOLO County in those early years of the 2010s, they were probably really happy or really upset about it. It's almost like, remember when Key and Peele came out with the substitute teacher sketch? And then there was an infamous Aaron line for the, I think, gentleman named Aaron. And then every Aaron, I still think to this day, they're plagued by that sketch, by that skit. Because anytime you meet them, in your head, you're still like, oh, Aaron, huh? Because you have to look at that name and say it that way. It's spelled that way. Your brain forces you to do it. And that sketch kind of made that intrusive thought we all have come to life. It made it socially acceptable. So I can imagine, yeah, for Aaron's, that was a really bad amount of time. And I wonder if YOLO County went through the same, what is it, just terribleness. For lack of a better term, I wonder if they were going through terribleness. Because there's only two ways you could go. You could either embrace it, lean into it, or be like, I don't like that. And then you write it off, right? You fight it for the rest of the time. But going back to the Jelly Belly factory, the reason I like the Jelly Belly factory so much is because they take you on that tour and they show you how the beans are made. And they would go through there and they would introduce some of the workers. They would speak over the loudspeaker and go, shh, hey, Bob, how's it going in there? Are you painting those beans? And he'd be like, yep. And the thumbs up, that means, yeah, he's painting the beans. And they introduce you to these workers, right? They really personalize them. They make you learn the humans, meet the humans behind the magic. And I thought that was really great. But can you imagine if you went on that tour and they were introducing people? They're like, oh, there's Bob, there's John, there's Steve. Oh, and right in the back there's Leonardo DiCaprio. You'd probably pause for a second, wouldn't you? Imagine on the tour, yeah, they just introduce some guy working in the Jelly Belly factory and say, that's Leonardo DiCaprio. And you're like, that doesn't look like him. And they're like, oh, you know him. Well, yeah, but he doesn't, that's not him though. You said Leonardo DiCaprio, right? That's not like a name you mixed up. You saying that's him? They're like, yeah, that's him. I'm like, all right, that doesn't look like him. They're like, you want to meet him? Seems like you know the guy. Sure, I'll meet him. But not because I want to meet him, because I want to confirm this. So I bring the guy up, right? And then they unmask him, because they're always masked, right? You don't want this breath on your buttered popcorn jelly beans. So he unmasked, and you clearly see this is not Leonardo DiCaprio, but it is. That's his name. His name is actually Leonardo DiCaprio. And Of course, if we talk about the actor Leonardo DiCaprio, you might wonder, is that his real name too? And this is something I wondered earlier this week. I looked it up. I was like, because a lot of celebrities, they have fake names. So I looked it up. I was like, what's this guy's name? And it is. Leonardo DiCaprio's name is Leonardo DiCaprio. It is, in fact, Leonardo Wilhelm DiCaprio. He was born Leonardo DiCaprio, which is wild. That's one of those people where you're like, well, he had to be a famous actor, or else what, right? Can you imagine having a coworker named Leonardo DiCaprio? Yeah, annoying that would be. And you would probably have to go by that, because that's not a name that you just call Leonardo. It feels incomplete, right? Well, that's only because you know Leonardo DiCaprio. Yeah, but still, if you had a name like Leonardo DiCaprio, you have to say the whole thing. We have friends like that, right? You probably have friends. Hope so. You're listening to this, so maybe not. But we all have friends, and there's some people where you have to say their full name. You don't say it to them, but when you talk about them, you say their full name. Maybe it's because they have a common first name. And so you have to, differentiate it by adding that last name. Like, what are common names? I feel like Alex, Zach, Andrew, right? Those are like classic names to where you kind of have to say the full name. Or maybe they'll go by their last name. And if not, they probably have some nickname. And so Leonardo DiCaprio, if you were working with him, he was a coworker of yours, you can't just call him Leonardo. You have to give him some kind of nickname. And I feel like his name is regal and elegant enough and big enough to where you would just say the whole thing. It would roll off the tongue, wouldn't it? Because it does now in showbiz. But I thought about it. I'm like, what are some nicknames you could give Leonardo DiCaprio if he was your coworker? And I was like, oh, DC would be a good one, for his last name. And then you go with the classic, like the Larry David thing or the Lil Dicky thing where you just call him LD, Leo DiCaprio, so you just call, hey, LD, what's up, man? So you could do that. You could go with the classic Leo, but I feel like he doesn't look like a Leo. I know that's because we know what he looks like, but this is, again, I'm talking about just a random guy named Leonardo DiCaprio. You would have to say his whole name. Like if you named your son LeBron James, which apparently I saw it this weekend, apparently there's like a high school athlete and his name is LeBron James. And someone was like, that's kind of crazy because LeBron is only, I think, in his like 22nd year in the league, which means you had that kid when LeBron was like just starting out. How are you so confident, But that's kind of like a guarantee then, right? There's no risk involved in that. Because let's say LeBron James isn't the best basketball player in the world. I would never say that. But if he's not the best, then he just falls out. Like no one ever knows who he is. So if you name your son LeBron James, then there's no harm, no foul, yeah? Because then he just grows up and everyone's like, oh, LeBron James, that's a very unique name. It just so happened that LeBron became the best player in the world of all time. But he could have easily just not. Like, I bet there's someone out there named Kobe Bryant. There are probably people named Michael Jordan. And there are. There's fucking Michael B. Jordan right now. Well, they're not fucking Michael B. Jordan. That's a boy can dream, am I right? No, but there are people with these famous names, but they aren't that person. And that's why even, Michael B. Jordan, we have to call him that. Growing up, he was probably known as Mike or Michael. But now in the showbiz world, we always say first name, last name, right? Leonardo DiCaprio, Brad Pitt. With Michael B. Jordan, we had to add the B. Or else it would be like, oh, you're talking about that? Nope, not that one. Not that one. I know what you were going to ask. We had to get in front of that. So yes, he might not even have a middle name. They just had to put that there. When he came into Hollywood, they were like, well, we're going to have to fix that. He was like, why? They're like, don't ask why. No, shut up. Shut up. Don't act like you don't see the problem here. He's like, no, really, what's wrong with calling me Michael Jordan? Really? This is what we're going to do? And that's what I feel like working with someone named Leonardo DiCaprio would be like. He'd be like, well, are we not going to acknowledge that that's the same name as the guy? What guy? Nope. Really? We're going to do this? You're going to make me just Google his name. Why are you trying to find his LinkedIn? No, because I won't be able to find it. because you won't find it. He's going to be flooded, you know? And that's the thing, right? I said those three names earlier. You can be named Bob, John, or Steve. Those are like classic names. Those are like coworker names, right? Like when you're just creating a fake story about coworkers, those are like three names you would use. If you were like, let me tell you a story about my coworkers, let's call him Leonardo DiCaprio. I'd be like, can we not? Just from like a word economy perspective, I feel like that's going to be a mouthful for you. So I'm just trying to make it easier on you. But also, yeah, that's kind of hard to, I'm going to keep thinking about him. Like you're going to tell this story about how you guys were fighting over lunch, right? The break room, you guys kept labeling your food as the same name, which is weird because his name is Leonardo DiCaprio. That's not your name. Why are you doing that? And every time you mention him, I'm going to imagine your coworker fighting a bear because I'm going to think your coworker was in The Revenant. So I thought about that. What if you had a coworker just with a crazy name of like a crazy famous person? That would be the weirdest shit ever. Because then, yeah, when you do talk about them sincerely with your friends and family, you can't use their real name. You would have to make a new name. You would have to probably call him like, yeah, Leo. Even if he doesn't go by that, you would have to do that. Because there would be too many questions that come after. Do you work with Leonardo? No, I don't. Let's just stop right here. If anything, he works with me. Okay, I got there first. He's a young guy too, which is weird. This Leonardo DiCaprio should actually be dating 26-year-olds, but no, he's younger than me. So, but yeah, if you were curious, I know you woke up today and you're like, what is Leonardo DiCaprio's real name, right? Because G-Eazy, that's Gerald. So Leonardo DiCaprio, that can't just be that, but it is. In fact, it got worse the more you added to it. His middle name is Wilhelm. What are we doing? But some people have that. Some people have these big names, right? And LeBron James is one of them. LeBron's name is so big that I was typing it into my notes app earlier this week. No questions, please. And it didn't autocorrect. I typed LeBron and it was like, yep, that's cool. Like I first typed LeBro because on the way to the full name, you have to go through that. And it was like, no, I don't know what that is. And then I added that N and they were like, oh yeah, that's cool. Here. I'll grant you clearance. I know this one. Your credentials do work here. And I thought, how interesting is that? Some people have weird fucking names. Like my name. My name is always marked by Word, Google Word, or Google Docs, Google Excel. Google Word? I meant fuck, holy shit. I guess Microsoft fell off. I don't even remember what it's called. But yes, Microsoft Word, Google Docs. Any of the things. If you type my name, there's always that little squiggly red line being like, no, you made that shit up. I'm like, no, I'm being real, man. He's like, really? I don't believe it. But LeBron has reached that level of like fame, notoriety, to where now the Apple Notes app is like, oh yeah, I know what that one is. There's some weird fucking names out there. But LeBron has gotten to a point, right? There's not a lot of LeBron Jameses out there. Actually, there's not even like a lot of LeBrons out there. But still, my Notes app is like, yeah, I know who you're talking about. But then I type my name, which I use every day. And it's like, what the fuck is that? Hey, did you slam your head against the keyboard? What was this? I'm like, no, I meant to put that there. They're like, are you sure? It's kind of an ugly combination of words. This is like, when people say smorgasbord, they're looking at the letters that make up your name. I'm like, hey, easy. God. It was all coming from Clippy in the bottom corner. He's like, did you mean to write an actual name? Not that gobbledygook that you just wrote down? Okay, Clippy. A lot of fucking... A lot of poison coming from a guy named Clippy. Kind of stupid. Hey, Clippy, I bet if I wrote your name, it would look wrong to the document. Well, don't write it. No, I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to write it. And Clippy takes a hold of my computer because he's malware and he erases my own words. But yeah, that's probably like another level of fame. Like, there's different levels to fame. I bet one of them is like having a food item named after you. But to have like a very publicly used application think that your funky ass name is actually a name, that's got to be a flex, right? And so what I do is I just add it to the dictionary and I'm like, yeah. So if I just go around to everyone's phone and I add my name to their dictionary, I'll be as famous as LeBron. That's why I go to the Apple store and I write my name and I add it to the dictionary of every system they have there. Every iPad, every iPhone, every Mac, I add it to the dictionary. And then I actually go in and I take LeBron out of the dictionary. And I'm like, oh, yeah, how weird. I growing up, I really liked, what is it? Rain. I really liked cloudy weather because that means like, oh, I get to stay in and play video games, right? But then as I became an adult and I started doing things in the real world, I really like the sun. But in the past few years, I've kind of flip flopped again. I really like, basically, since I've been working full time, I love a cloudy day. And someone asked me about this recently. It came up and they're like, why do you like a cloudy day? Everyone likes a sunny day. Like, what's the appeal of a cloudy day? I don't get it. And I finally articulated it as I was explaining it out loud to them, and I figured it out. The reason I like a cloudy day is because it's everyone's forced to be inside. Now, I already had this angle. I knew this. And this is why I would never talk about this, because it sounds so bad. It sounds bad to say I like a cloudy day because I know everyone is inside doing nothing. It's like it comes from the same like vein as FOMO, basically. I love the rain because I know no one is out there having any fun. But no, it feels like you're having FOMO. When it's sunny, you're like, oh, people are probably outside having the time of their life. But why is it that this feeling started when I started working full time? And that's where it clicked for me. I was like, oh, the reason I've started now liking cloudy days as a full time working adult is because when you are working, when it's sunny out, it feels like everyone else is having fun and you have to do this job. Like when you were growing up, right? The sun was amazing because it signified, or it went hand in hand, it became inextricably linked with summertime, summer break. It meant no school. But now, when it's sunny out, yes, there are a bunch of people off on summer break, but I still have to work. And this is the part that made it click for me when I was explaining to this person. When I'm now working on a sunny day, it feels like when you were younger and you had to stay in during recess because you got in trouble. It feels like, oh, fuck. I gotta stay indoors while it's sunny out, nonetheless, and do work? What the hell? This feels like a punishment. And that's why I love a cloudy day. Because I know no one's having fun. We're all inside doing work because we can't do anything else. This is what we're supposed to do. That's why, yeah, when you were younger, it was this weird thing that happened. It was like so many dynamics were at play that were never intermingling before. Like when you were younger and there was a rainy day, you all had to stay inside your classroom. And now there's all these weird friend groups that are meshing that usually wouldn't mesh because usually you're out on the playground, right? And you're doing your own respective sports. Like I would always play basketball. Some people would always play flag football. Some people would always play soccer. Some people would just sit and talk. And the yard duty would come over and be like, hey, you got to get walking, okay? We need to see you active. It's not enough that Nickelodeon shuts off the channel one day a year. We need you active 5 days a week on this playground at recess, okay? I know it's called a recess, but you don't get a break. Start walking, girls. It's always girls. They always they always go to these group of girls that are just talking, under the shade, and they're like, nope, I need you walking, girls. Ladies, let's get walking, okay? But everyone was in their own respective sport, their own respective arena out at recess. But it was a free-for-all once you were inside during a rainy day, because now you're looking at people that played football, that played soccer, and you're like, so what do we do now? And you're like, I don't know. We can try to throw these crinkled up pieces of paper in that trash can over there. We're like, yeah, that's cool. Let's do that. Let's all use our sports. Let's combine them and create our own sport. So here are the rules, folks. We're going to treat the trash can like a basket hoop, right? And then we're going to implement football and have people on defense. And then with soccer, we'll say that we can only kick the ball in. There we go. We've invented our own sport. And so it was this weird day of reckoning, right? But we were all together. Even when it wasn't sunny outside, you felt like you weren't missing out. Felt like we were all united. And that's what I feel like as an adult. I feel like we're all united when we're all stuck inside. Like the pandemic, terrible, awful, right? But there was something nice knowing of it, that we're all just inside together, separate, which is ideal. I don't want to talk to anyone, but we're all inside. If I can't have fun, no one can have fun. Basically what I'm saying. But I figured it out. It's the same like thing in my brain going off to why I hate the sun now. I don't hate the sun, but it feels kind of depressing when you see the sun out and it's like 2 p.m. and you're like trying to word an email properly so it gets received well. It's an awful feeling. But when it's rainy, you're like, yeah, I'm working, but who isn't, I guess, right? Everywhere in the world, when it's raining, people are just, well, if it's raining everywhere in the world, but if it's raining, everyone is somewhere looking at a screen. But when it's sunny out, I'm like, oh no, someone might be enjoying life as it was intended. Damn it. A rainy day makes you lean into the society we've created, which is one that we just stay inside and we increase shareholder value. I feel like when a painting is near done and, the artist does a few more strokes, they finish themselves off with a couple strokes, it always makes me nervous. Like, have you ever seen those videos where it's a really zoomed in video and they add just a couple strokes to like a tree or something and they zoom out and it's this beautiful like Bob Ross landscape. And you're like, oh my goodness, wow. And those few little strokes, I'm so focused on them and that really completed the painting. But it always makes me anxious when they do it because I'm like, don't fuck anything up. Don't do it. And that's why I feel like if I was painting, I feel like I'd be so nervous. I wouldn't know when to stop. I'd be like, should we keep stroking? And they're like, well, if you have the stamina, go ahead. I'm like, wait, what are we talking about here? Is painting supposed to make you tired? They're like, wait, you were talking about painting that whole time? Yeah, what were you talking about? I don't know. Maybe we should just go to our respective sides. Man, I'm hoping for a rainy day so I don't have to see you, so you get stuck at home. But when a painting, right, it reaches that point where like it looks nice, but it's not done, that's fucking nerve-wracking. I don't paint, but I know that that's a feeling you can have. And I know that that is a feeling, so I was able to feel that feeling somewhere else. And it's like making an egg. I was preparing a sun-side-up egg this week, and I finished it, right? I put pepper, I made it to perfection, right? Put it on the stovetop for just as long as it needs to be. But then I forgot to add salt. Usually when it's like cooking, the egg is cooking, I add salt there, which is kind of like a risk, less of a risk when you're adding salt because I feel like some of the salt like dissolves or some shit in the heat. So even if you had a fuck ton, it might not fuck it as hard. But when I had a finished egg and I was going to add salt, I was like, okay, so all the salt I add right here, I'm going to taste. So I have to be very careful. And then I did a little like cost benefit analysis, right? I was like, all right, let's say I don't do this. Let's say I don't take on the risk of adding salt. I just get an egg by itself. Is that bad? Because there's a potential here, right? I could pour some salt on and have a pretty good egg. But I could also pour too much salt and basically have an inedible egg. So then, is the risk, right, of having an inedible egg greater, or is that dissatisfaction greater than eating an egg sans salt? So that being said, I did still add salt, but I was nervous doing it, and I was like, oh, this must be what painters go through, right? When they're like, yeah, this is done in one capacity, but it's not done to my liking. I could add one little stroke, and really send it over the top. Or I could just have it as is and people would be okay. Essentially, a non-salted egg is like having a sketch, but then salting it is like adding the color. And I was afraid that I wouldn't get the colors right. I was afraid I'd add too much salt. So yeah, artist, I see you. We have the same struggle, don't we? Speaking of struggling artists, last week I talked about AI art, and it's a very controversial topic, but I am pleased to announce that everyone agreed with me. Not one person had an issue with what I said, which is nice. But I don't really set myself up for failure, right? I always put myself in like the best position possible. And that's by talking about things that aren't controversial. Like, try this one on for size. I think war is bad. Yeah. What's that? This guy disrespects soldiers. Nope. Okay, so I didn't say that. You know what? I think war is good, actually. This guy doesn't care if thousands of people die. Okay, so I didn't say that either. I didn't, I realize now, okay, I gotta pick which one is worse. Disrespecting soldiers or wanting thousands of people to die. I, mm, I feel like some people would say one, some would say the other. I don't know which one I feel. Um, and so, you know what? I'm going to look at the analytics. I'm going to see what they say and then adopt that as my own personal opinion. That way I'm right and everyone agrees with me. Just like everyone did last week. Everyone was very cool about it. And I'm actually, yeah, a little surprised that everyone had the same exact take as me. Certain coworkers feeling safe enough to curse in front of you is an honor. Like imagine if you had a coworker named Leonardo DiCaprio. And he was like, oh, fuck, man, I've had a rough day. And you're like, oh, Leo. He was like, call me LD. I'm like, right, sorry, my bad. LD. I'm sorry to hear that, man. And he was like, yeah. But then in my head, right, I'd be so cool on the outside. But on the inside, I'd be like, oh, shit. LD just cursed in front of me. He said the big F word. He said, fuck. I didn't realize he fucked with me like that. But it is an honor. I think, have you ever gotten to that point? If you haven't, it doesn't exist. It's not a thing people do. It's not your fault that they're not cursing in front of you. It's their fault. Yep. So if you haven't experienced it, don't worry. This doesn't happen. Everyone likes you. Just like everyone liked what I said last week. And that's not a joke. Everyone agreed with what I said. But yeah, that is an honor. Because you have to act all proper, right? When you're working full time at your full time job. Unless you go to Popeyes, then that is actually not what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to be as mean as possible. But no, I've had only great experiences at Popeyes. That's just a joke that I've heard on the internet. Again, I get all my opinions from the internet and I pass them off as my own. That way no one can get mad at me. I basically don't stand on anything. That way, whenever someone says, I don't like your opinion on this, I can say, well, guess what? Hey, lucky for you and I, that wasn't even mine. I just took it. That's like if you are wearing a really ugly shirt and someone's like, that's a fucking disgusting shirt. You'd be like, well, that's okay because I stole it. So I'm gonna, yeah, it's not, I didn't even pay for it. Joke's on them, huh? I know I'm the one wearing it and I was the one that stole it. So I guess you could say it was my creative choice, but you can't really blame me, right? Because I didn't actually give up any of my hard-earned money at this job where actually I have a coworker that trusts me enough to say, fuck. And what makes it even better, right? Really elevates it to the next level is if they curse about a different person. Because you can just exclamatory curse, right? Exclamatorily curse and be like, oh, fuck, man. But if you say, can you believe what this fucker did? You're like, oh, shit, I'm on like another level of the inner circle. Because if they're saying that to you, there's no shot they're going to say the same thing about you to someone else, right? Like, at work, there's someone, right? Where you're like, oh, this fucker. Isn't it crazy? I think I've talked about this before, but isn't it crazy to think that you might be someone's fucker? Like, you talk about your job to your friends and family and you say, oh, this piece of shit. You could be that in someone's life. Isn't that wild? And I'm okay with that. I don't take issue with that. I know. And in some people's stories, I'm probably like a fucker or a piece of shit. But that's okay. That's part of the human experience, right? The more I think about that, it'll probably freak me the fuck out. But that's why I choose not to think. And you can probably see that that's evident from these podcast episodes. So thank you so much, right? Like I said, I'm going to take a look at the analytics. I'm going to see which one do people like more. Disrespecting soldiers or letting thousands of people die, and then I'll let you know which one I agree with. But something tells me it's not going to be either of those. But we'll take a look. We'll look at the analytics. And when I look at the analytics, make sure you give me something to look at. So make sure you leave a like on this episode. Subscribe if you haven't already. Thank you so much for the support, as always. Very much appreciated. And I will talk to you next week. Okay?